that realization didn't come all at once. It came in quiet moments. In subtle cracks. In the long silence between requests that were always dressed up as family. And when it hit me fully, I knew there was no going back. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. And I finally took it. It didn't come with fireworks. No dramatic music. Just the slow burn of truth finally settling into place. And the truth is, I was never hard to love. I was just inconvenient to control. Now, I live without apologies for needing peace. Without guilt for saying no. And without fear that someone's going to take advantage of me the second I lower my guard. I walk through my door every night knowing no one is waiting to tear me down in the name of blood ties. And that's more powerful than any revenge I could have planned. If your family demanded your peace in exchange for their comfort, would you give it? Would you sacrifice your mental clarity, your boundaries, your space, just so someone else could keep pretending they were right? Would you let guilt drown your instincts just because the word family was stamped on the label? I did. For years. Until I didn't. And I can tell you, there is a line. And if you don't draw it, they will build their lives right on top of yours, and call it love. So I'm asking you, where's your line? Have you ever been made to feel guilty for saying no? For protecting your energy? For choosing yourself over someone who never once chose you? Drop a comment. Share your story. You'd be surprised how many people are carrying that same quiet ache, waiting to be told they're not wrong for walking away. That they're allowed to choose peace, even if no one claps for it. Your voice matters here. You're not alone. Sometimes, love means walking away. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started healing. Because there comes a point when giving becomes survival for them, and suffocation for you. Sometimes, freedom is the apology you never got. The acknowledgement you stopped begging for. The validation you gave yourself when no one else would. You don't owe anyone your destruction, not even the ones who raised you. And sometimes, the only way to rebuild your life is by closing the door that never protected you. You don't have to slam it. You can close it gently. Quietly. Even lovingly. But once it's closed, let it stay shut. Because the life waiting for you on the other side? It's not just yours. It's yours on your terms. And that, more than anything, is what makes it worth protecting. Always. And it tasted like peace. I wasn't expecting them to show up that fast. But I should have known. Around 5:30 that evening, there was a knock at the door, loud, impatient. I checked the peephole. There they were. All three of them. My parents stood stiffly behind Natalie, who was holding her phone in one hand and gesturing wildly with the other. Behind them, the trunk of their SUV sat open, bags and boxes piled inside like some kind of domestic invasion. I opened the door just wide enough to lean into the frame. "Ryan," my mom said, tight-lipped. "We need to talk." They didn't waste time pretending anymore. "You lied to us," my dad barked. "You knew we were bringing her over today." My mom stepped forward, her tone switching into pleading mode. "She's your sister, Ryan. We just want her somewhere safe. She's had such a rough year." Natalie scoffed behind her. "More like a rough decade," I muttered. "What happened to you?" my mom asked, voice cracking. "This isn't who you are." I tilted my head. "Maybe you never paid enough attention to find out." They wanted me to feel ashamed. They wanted me to fold. But I just stood there, calm, still, unmoved. Natalie stepped forward, eyes blazing. "No. We're done with this," she snapped. "I'm not standing here while you act like some stranger." She pushed her way past my parents, reached for the doorframe with one hand, trying to shove it open. I didn't flinch. "Don't do that," I said, voice low. She glared at me. "What are you going to do, slam it in my face?" "No," I said. "But I'll call the police. And I won't be joking." For a second, I saw it hit her that this wasn't a game. That I wasn't bluffing. That the brother she once controlled had finally disappeared. My hand went to my phone, deliberate. Natalie froze. My mom gasped. My dad muttered something under his breath. But no one moved again. I unlocked my phone and started dialing. "You're not serious," Natalie said, her voice climbing, somewhere between disbelief and panic. My dad stepped forward. "Ryan, come on. Don't do this. Don't embarrass everyone." I held up a finger, just one, as the dispatcher picked up. "Yes, I need to report a trespassing situation," I said calmly, my eyes never leaving theirs. "I've asked them to leave my property. They refused. There's an attempt to force entry." Silence fell like a thunderclap. Even Natalie stepped back. I gave my address, confirmed a few details, and ended the call. Then I slipped the phone into my pocket and leaned against the doorframe again, arms crossed. "Help should be here soon," I said. "So unless you'd prefer to explain this yourselves, I suggest you start packing the car." My mom's eyes welled with tears. Natalie looked stunned, jaw tight. My dad? He just looked defeated. Like maybe, for the first time, he understood this wasn't a bluff. 10 minutes later, the squad car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, calm and professional, but firm. I met them halfway down the walk. My parents didn't move. Natalie stood like a statue, arms crossed, shaking her head like the world had flipped upside down. "They're trying to force someone into my home," I said. "I've asked them to leave. They won't." I pulled out my phone again. Screenshots. Messages. Voicemails from that morning. The text where my mom said, "We'll just bring her things, it'll be easier that way." A photo of Natalie's suitcase that she had sent with a winking emoji. The officers read them quietly. "All right," one finally said, turning to my parents. "It's time to leave. Now." And just like that, the last card they had, manipulation, was off the table. I closed the door behind the officers, locked it, and stood there for a moment in the quiet. Not tense. Not shaken. Just still. My fingers hovered over my phone for a beat before I tapped into my recent call list and blocked every number I recognized: Mom, Dad, Natalie. Then I went into my messages and did the same. Gone. No notifications. No pings. No half-hearted apologies disguised as guilt trips. I slid the phone onto the counter and just breathed. The weight wasn't gone, not yet. But it had shifted. I could feel it moving, from my shoulders to theirs. And for once, I didn't feel bad about it. I walked through the apartment, the space that was mine and mine alone. No extra boxes. No shouting. No one tossing their mess into the corners and calling it just temporary. Just silence, soft and steady, like a song I hadn't heard in years. It wasn't victory I felt. It was freedom. And I'd bought it with every boundary I should have drawn years ago. I remembered being 17, standing in the rain outside a party Natalie had dragged me to because she needed a ride home, but didn't want to leave yet. I waited outside for over an hour, my phone dying, soaked through. When she finally came out, drunk and laughing, she called me dramatic for looking upset. I remembered covering for her when she lost another job, my parents scolding me for judging instead of supporting. I'd let it all slide. Again and again. Because I thought love meant loyalty, and loyalty meant silence. They had rewritten the rules of family so many times, I forgot I could say no. Standing in my kitchen, still barefoot, I realized something I had never allowed myself to believe before. Peace isn't selfish. Boundaries aren't cruelty. Walking away isn't weakness, it's clarity. They had taken so much under the illusion of closeness. And now, for the first time, they couldn't reach me. Not because I hated them. But because I finally loved myself more than the role they kept casting me in. I wasn't angry. I was free. And I wasn't going back. The next morning, the sun poured into my apartment through floor-to-ceiling windows. There was no shouting from the hallway. No boxes in the corner waiting to be unpacked. No passive-aggressive questions about what was for breakfast. Just light. Air. Stillness. I made coffee without having to move anyone's purse off the counter. I played a record I hadn't listened to in months. I sat on my balcony, drank slowly, watched the city move beneath me, and realized I wasn't waiting for a call to ruin the day. Everything in my space had a place. The silence wasn't awkward, it was earned. Every drawer was mine. Every step echoed peace instead of tension. For once, I wasn't living under the weight of someone else's poor decisions. I wasn't fixing. I wasn't absorbing. I was simply being. And for the first time, that was enough. There was a time I used to fantasize about a different version of that dinner table. One where my parents would look at me and really see me. Where Natalie would admit she was wrong. Where someone, anyone, would thank me, not just use me. I waited years for that moment. It never came. And eventually, I stopped expecting it. I realized I wasn't the broken one. I wasn't cold. I wasn't difficult. I was just the one who finally noticed the pattern, and decided not to live in it anymore. I even smiled a little, just enough to match their relief. But inside? I was already planning exactly how this was going to burn. Because they didn't know. They didn't know I hadn't lived in that apartment for weeks. They didn't know someone else lived there now. They didn't know they'd just walked themselves straight into the wreckage they built, without me lifting a single finger. The truth was, I'd moved out 3 weeks ago. The place they were planning to dump Natalie in? It wasn't mine anymore. I'd sold the apartment, signed the paperwork, handed over the keys, and walked away without saying a word. Not to them. Not to her. They hadn't asked about my life in months, maybe years. Just assumed I was exactly where they left me, stuck in place, frozen in the same role they'd always given me, the one who cleans up after everybody else. So when I told them, sure, that's fine, I meant it. It was fine. Because whatever chaos they were about to unleash, it wasn't landing on me. I was done letting them pick up my piece and set it on fire. Selling that apartment wasn't just about real estate. It was about reclaiming the one thing they'd chipped away at for decades, my space. My freedom. It happened after the last time Natalie borrowed my car and left it in a parking garage with the windows down and the tank empty. My parents had brushed it off, she's just distracted, she didn't mean to, and asked me to let it go. That night, I sat on my balcony, sipping whiskey, staring down at the city lights. And I realized something. They weren't going to stop using me. They didn't know how. So I'd have to stop them. Not with shouting or fights or lectures. No. That wouldn't work on people who only hear what serves them. I'd disappear from their plans, quietly, cleanly, completely. I didn't scream. Didn't argue. That's not how I fight. I fight in silence, in quiet exits, in paperwork filed ahead of time, in smiles that stretch just enough to hide the fracture lines underneath. Let them talk. Let them plan. Let them believe I was on board. That I was still the same fool who bailed them out every time they tripped over the mess they made. I let them feel comfortable, because comfortable people don't prepare for consequences. They thought I was being polite. Cooperative. They called it kind. What they didn't realize was that every nod, every sure, every pause before a reply was me watching the floor disappear beneath them, board by board, while they kept walking like nothing had changed. I wasn't angry. Not in the way they thought. No, what I felt was colder than that. Precise. Not rage. Strategy. Let them move the pieces. I already flipped the board. The week dragged on with cheerful updates from my mom. She texted me a photo of Natalie's boxes stacked neatly in their hallway. She's so excited. I replied with a thumbs up emoji. Natalie posted a story on Instagram, fresh start loading, complete with a winking selfie and a suitcase in the frame. They had no idea. Each day that passed, the storm inched closer, one group message, one phone call, one passive-aggressive emoji at a time. I wasn't scared. I was savoring the countdown. Saturday came bright and clean, like the universe had no idea what was about to unfold. I spent the morning downtown, coffee, a walk, no rush. It was peaceful. Almost quiet enough to forget what day it was. Almost. By noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it buzzed again. Another number. Then again. I picked up on the fourth ring. Ryan, my mom's voice was already fraying at the edges, trying to sound composed but unraveling fast. What's going on? We just got to your apartment and, she paused, like saying it out loud made it worse. Someone else is living here? In the background, I heard Natalie yelling and my dad talking over both of them, trying to make sense of it. Oh, I said, pausing for just the right amount of time. Yeah. That's weird. Weird, she snapped. The landlord says the place was sold weeks ago. There's a new tenant living here, he says he's never heard of you. I let out a small, practiced breath. The kind that sounds like confusion. That's so strange, I said. I guess I should have mentioned it sooner, huh? Silence. Then my dad's voice broke through. Ryan, what the hell is this? We're standing outside with Natalie's stuff. You said she could move in. Right, I said, tone steady. I did say that. My mom jumped in. So where is she supposed to go now? We brought everything. I assumed you knew I moved, I said lightly. I guess that one's on me. Natalie's voice cut through, full of disbelief. You're kidding me, right? I almost smiled. Nope. But I do hope the new tenant's nice. And then I hung up. The next 30 minutes were a flood. Voicemails stacked up like dominoes. My dad's voice, low and furious, this is not how family treats each other. My mom, somewhere between scolding and sobbing, I just don't understand what's happened to you. Natalie sent a string of texts, each more dramatic than the last. You're heartless. I have nowhere to go. Is this some kind of sick joke? You're actually evil, Ryan. Then came the guilt grenades. After everything we've done for you. Your sister is in tears. She trusted you. This will destroy her, you know that, right? They didn't know that every word only made me more certain. This wasn't about a place to stay. It was about control. They didn't want help. They wanted access. But for once, the door was locked. And I had the key. I scrolled through the chaos once, calmly. Then I turned off my notifications, placed my phone face down, and leaned back in my chair. The coffee was still warm. I took a long, slow sip and let the silence stretch out. For the first time in years, it was just that, silence. And it tasted like peace. The next 30 minutes were a flood. Voicemails stacked up like dominoes. My dad's voice, low and furious, this is not how family treats each other. My mom, somewhere between scolding and sobbing, I just don't understand what's happened to you. Natalie sent a string of texts, each more dramatic than the last. You're heartless. I have nowhere to go. Is this some kind of sick joke? You're actually evil, Ryan. Then came the guilt grenades. After everything we've done for you. Your sister is in tears. She trusted you. This will destroy her, you know that, right? They didn't know that every word only made me more certain. This wasn't about a place to stay. It was about control. They didn't want help. They wanted access. But for once, the door was locked. And I had the key. I scrolled through the chaos once, calmly. Then I turned off my notifications, placed my phone face down, and leaned back in my chair. The coffee was still warm. I took a long, slow sip and let the silence stretch out. For the first time in years, it was just that, silence. My name's Ryan. I'm 31 years old, living in a high-rise apartment in downtown Denver. I've built a quiet, orderly life, one I've worked for, protected, and, when necessary, defended from the chaos I was born into. I'm not flashy. I don't chase attention. My job as a data systems architect pays well, keeps me busy, and most importantly, keeps me away from unnecessary drama. I've always believed peace is earned. You don't stumble into it, you carve it out, inch by inch, usually while someone else is trying to rip it away. I see family maybe twice a year, on neutral territory, and even then, I keep conversations surface level. It's not that I hate them. I just know better now. Distance, for me, isn't coldness. It's survival. And if that makes me the black sheep in their eyes, so be it. I stopped explaining myself years ago. What they don't realize is that I'm not angry. I'm just done playing the role they assigned me without asking. If this story hit close to home, thank you for listening. It means more than you know. If you've ever had to choose peace over family, drop a 1 in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And hey, if you're building a life on your own terms too, hit that subscribe button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to like the video. It helps more than you think. You're not wrong for walking away. You're just finally walking toward yourself. See you in the next one. Growing up, I was the kid who figured things out early. Not because I wanted to be some golden child, but because no one else was going to do it for me. While other kids had curfews and consequences, I had expectations. No matter how old I was expected to understand. To let things slide. To pick up the slack when things fell apart, especially when it came to my sister. My parents called me mature for my age. What they really meant was, we're going to lean on you because it's easier than parenting properly. When bills were tight, I stopped asking for things. When my sister blew up the house with her latest mess, I was told, Ryan, don't make it worse. When she quit her third job in 2 months, they looked at me, not her, to help. By the time I was in high school, I knew how to file taxes, cook dinner, cover for my sister's screw-ups, and keep my mouth shut when it mattered. I became the family's built-in firefighter, janitor, therapist, and eventually, ATM. Not because they asked. Because I knew if I didn't step up, no one would. They didn't say thank you. They said, you're strong. You can handle it. Natalie is 3 years older than me. 34 going on 17. She's the type who can burn down a bridge and still convince you it was your fault for building it in the first place. Always in between jobs, always trying to figure things out, always running on someone else's dime. My parents say she's just been through a lot. But really, she's just learned how to get away with everything, because no one's ever made her pay the price. She knows how to cry at the right moment, how to spin a story just enough to seem like the victim. Every time she fails, the excuses are ready: toxic boss, toxic roommates, bad luck, wrong timing. And every time, my parents lap it up like gospel. I've lost count of how many times they bailed her out. Or worse, asked me to do it. Can you help your sister out? Just this once. She's going through a rough patch. You're doing well, you can afford it. What they don't see is that every just this once took a little more out of me. I started feeling like a spare part in my own family, useful, but never seen. They didn't ask if I was okay. They assumed I was. Burnout didn't come all at once. It snuck in quietly. I'd sit in my car outside family events, staring at the steering wheel, wondering what version of myself I had to be this time to get through the evening. Eventually, I stopped going altogether. And I never, not once, heard anyone ask why. The invitation came out of nowhere. A simple Sunday dinner, my mom said, like she'd just thought of it. No birthdays. No holidays. No special occasion. Just dinner. I should have known. Their house smelled like buttered rolls and manipulation. The table was set with the good plates, the ones they usually only bring out at Christmas. My mom greeted me with that tight, two-eyed smile that meant she was about to ask me for something. My dad offered a handshake instead of a hug, which was more warmth than he usually bothered with. And then there was Natalie. She barely looked up from her phone, sitting at the table already like it was her throne. Not a single hi, no forced hug, not even a sarcastic jab. Just the quiet hum of scrolling and that smug half-smile she gets when she knows something you don't. I sat down, stomach already twisting. Small talk filled the room like static. Traffic, weather, housework, questions with no intent behind them. I just nodded through it, waiting for the real reason they brought me here. And then, right as we were passing around the salad, my mom set down her fork, folded her hands, and smiled sweetly. "So, Ryan," she said. "Natalie's going to be moving in with you for a little while." The words didn't even have time to land before my dad chimed in, casual as ever. "We've already packed up her stuff. Figured we'd drop it off this weekend." I blinked. Natalie still didn't look at me. Just kept tapping her screen like nothing had been said. My mom leaned in, as if she were offering a favor, not flipping my life upside down. "It just makes sense," she added. "You've got that nice place all to yourself. She needs some stability. Just until she gets back on her feet." My jaw stayed clenched. My hands didn't move. But inside, something cracked, and I knew they had no idea what was coming next. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at them, fork frozen halfway to my mouth. The room went quiet, not awkward, not tense, just expectant, like they were waiting for applause after a performance they thought had gone perfectly. My heart thudded against my ribs, but my face stayed still. Natalie finally glanced up at me, just long enough to catch my eye and smirk. It wasn't a smile. It was a look of victory. Like she'd just won something. Like I was a checkmark on her to-do list. My parents? They looked relieved. Like they'd dodged another responsibility and tossed it onto someone more capable. Me? Not one of them asked how I felt. Not one of them even paused to consider that maybe this wasn't okay. They'd made a decision. Now they were just waiting for me to fall in line, like I always had. I set my fork down gently. Took a slow breath. Then I nodded. "Sure," I said, voice calm. "If it helps her get back on her feet, why not?" My mom's eyes lit up immediately. My dad leaned back, satisfied. Natalie smiled wider, stretching her arms out behind her chair like a cat that just stole a warm spot on the couch.